thank you so much for being with me here today.
My pleasure.
It's a privilege. I've been working with you for the past 2 months as an actor, and it's been an amazing 2 months. You have over 50 years' experience as an actor on stage and screen, done over 100 films. You have been a director, and you've written 6 books on acting. And
7.
7. Well, one's a biography, so.
No, but that's an acting book. It really is.
Okay.
Yeah.
But first of all, I wanted to quote you. In your book, Freeing the Actor, you say, the work I've been doing for half a century has proven to be life-changing, not only for acting, but also for living, because there is no difference between the two. And I wanted you to talk about this and maybe tell me where you think the line between acting and living
is. You want me to talk about the fact that there's no separation between living and acting, right?
Yeah.
Well, there isn't, because you take your life into your work, whether it's film or the stage, etc. All of your choices and all of the things that you use come from your own life. If you have blocks, inhibitions, obstacles in your life, fear, insecurities, that's going to translate into your freedom or your lack of freedom to act. So a lot of what I do with my work is to liberate the actor's instrument, the person's instrument, to free the actors supposedly, hopefully, to be able to act from an experiential place. So a lot of the work is predicated on liberating the instrument, alleviating issues, problems, lifelong blocks. And so that's why I say there's no separation between living and acting. If you're not free to live, and you're not open and accessible and expressive, impressively and expressively, how can you even think of being an actor openly, impressively and expressively? So a lot of my work relates to the instrument and liberating the instrument. That's what I mean when I say there's no separation between the two. And if there is a separation, the actor who is blocked and has obstacles and can't function has to impose life as an actor, be presentational, representational, assume behaviors that do not come from a real place. So a lot of actors act from that place, from a place above and beyond who they are and what they feel, because they're not accessible to who they are and what they feel.
So your work has a profound effect on people's lives as well as people's
Yes, it's totally.
craft.
Actually, it's very profoundly life-changing. I say that as a result of experience. It isn't just a concept or a theory I came up with. You know, after teaching for 52 years, I see the evolution of people's journey and the impact on their lives and how it changes their lives on a day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month basis. And also, it carries into their work, not only as actors, but into other journeys that they might be on, writing, directing, painting, whatever they do. Everything we do liberates the person to function creatively.
And what's the biggest transformation or the biggest effect that it's had on your life?
Well,
I mean, to name a few.
It's been my journey. My journey has been profound. Even right now, I'm in therapy. I'm still dealing with issues, solving issues, problems, coming to terms with conscious, unconscious discoveries and realizations. The profundity that you're talking about isn't a single issue or a single experience. It's everything that's happened on the journey. It's transformational. It's transformed my life into a place where I'm in touch with who I am, what I feel. I'm comfortable expressing that. My self-esteem, my ego, my entitlement is in place. I live by 2 credos. I always say this to people. And they're very simple. They are, stay hungry, keep reaching, keep learning, and never get self-impressed. See, people who get self-impressed, usually it's an insecurity issue or ego issue they haven't dealt with. As soon as you start believing that you can walk on water, or that you are a guru, or that you have the answers, the secret of life, you're done. You don't grow from that point anymore. So I have never allowed myself to get self-impressed, you know. I said to my, this is an interesting, I'll share this with you. I said to my psychiatrist, 2, 3, 4 years ago, I've been with him now 6, I said, I get more love from more people on this planet than anybody deserves in a single lifetime. I wasn't bragging, I was telling the truth. I do receive an awful lot of love, affection, tenderness, appreciation, all of that. And I feel very fortunate and lucky, and I embrace it, but I don't take it for granted. I don't take it, and I don't do anything to promote it. It happens out of the reality of the moment and people's relationship that I have with people, what we do for each other. It's collaboration. I don't change people's lives. The work and the collaboration between me, the work, and the person changes people's lives. You know, I don't do that.
So we were talking about embracing all parts of ourselves. So even the parts that we're not comfortable with necessarily, the idea is to embrace all of it.
Yeah.
And that's where the balance is.
To include them in our all of our subparts. The disowned subparts are usually, for the most part, the opposites of the primary subparts.
So the primary subparts are the ones that show up
The ones
in our
the ones
everyday
that
lives.
we're familiar with, the ones that help us get through life.
Yeah.
The stuff that, the parts of us that we're aware of, the ego, all of the subpersonalities that we are aware of, you know, that run our life, that we go in and out of, that has helped us to grow up, etc. The disowned parts are very intimidating to the primary parts, because they're usually the elements, the less recognized, the less conscious parts, the less recognized and acceptable parts of ourselves. So they're kind of relegated to the disowned part of who we are, and they show up in our dreams, and they show up in behaviors, unconscious impulses that we have. So as you become a conscious person, and you develop an awareness, aware ego in relation to the existence of energies. Subpersonalities can be called energies, subparts, other selves. You can give them whatever name. They're facets of our entire personality, facets of it. So these disowned parts usually are parts that the primary selves are really reluctant to accept, because they're very threatened by them. They're very threatened. But when you do voice dialogue, excuse me, voice dialogue, or anything where you develop an awareness towards it, an aware ego, that these parts exist, and you embrace them as one, the primary and the subpart, the disowned parts, then you're much more comfortable and you're much more balanced. And balance is what you started to ask me about.
Yeah.
So balance is very important. You know, it's really interesting. One of my students stopped me in the hallway a little while ago, and he asked me if I knew who Wilhelm Reich was. I said, yes, I know Wilhelm Reich, the Orgone box, I know Fritz Perls, I know Gurdjieff and Ouspensky. I've absolutely investigated all, or not all, but many of the spiritual, theoretical, psychological theories and people who have innovated helpful things, and all relates to one thing, I believe. They all relate to becoming more aware, more conscious, and more functional. All of the approaches to become knowledgeable, aware, privy to what's going on in your life, so that you're not being pushed around by energies that you don't know are there. That's what it's all about. So it's like introspection, self-realization, all of that relates to the discovery of self and the ability to function in that self. You were talking about yoga, and
Yeah.
you're doing this documentary on that.
Mm.
All of the spiritual teachers, all of the gurus and all of the Indian masters of transcendental meditation and meditation of all kinds,
Mm.
all of them were dedicated to discovering the self,
Mm.
to getting in touch with who we are, what makes us tick, what makes us function, why we do what we do, and to be able to find a way to embrace, balance that, and live with it.
Yeah.
Rather than it being an adversarial energy, it becomes a promotional, positive energy that takes us through our life happily rather than unhappily.
And I think that's why I was very drawn to your work, and I am into yoga. I mean, I think acting is a way of living out, you know, all your subpersonalities. So you don't just have to choose one career or one, you know. If you're successful, you can experience being many different people.
Of course, many different parts of you.
Yeah, and the word yoga means union, and which is sort of, I guess, union of, well, can be many things. Union of the self. Yeah.
Right. That's good.
Yeah.
That's terrific.
So, and your work, I wanted to ask as well, because I find it very interesting what's happening with the East coming into the West and influencing our culture, and I wanted to ask where you think that's going to end up. You know, there's so much yoga and meditation in Western culture now, and your work includes Carl Jung, which is Eastern philosophy, and you know, what's it going to look like?
Well, you know, it's interesting. I have been now for 6 or 7 months again into acupuncture.
Okay.
It's an Eastern Chinese medicine,
Yeah.
which is very, very, very old. And so much of the Eastern philosophies and the Western philosophies in the past, even when they collided, seem now to be much more acceptable in both areas. Like, for example, I have an internist. My doctor is a Western medicine internist. He's an American doctor. Okay. What's happening in medicine is they're beginning to recognize alternative treatment. Vitamins, acupuncture, yoga, meditation, all kinds of homeopathic and holistic approaches to health, whereas the Western medical profession was very, very blocked and against it for many, many, many years. And so it's now called, I don't know if it's alternative, complementary medicine, complementary approaches to Western medicine. So I think that mankind is becoming slowly more conscious.
Yeah.
I say slowly
integrated.
because from prehistoric times to now, it's taken eons, millions of years to get to where we are, and I don't think we're there yet. I think we're on our way, you know. I have a rock on my table there, my desk table. It says, the journey is the reward, and it's a Taoist proverb. Taoist, Chinese,
Yeah.
Taoist proverb. The journey is the reward, and that's true for me. That's true for me. The journey is my reward. People come together at a certain time in their lives, and they are in a very similar place with each other. Spiritually, emotionally, psychologically, physically, sexually, and in every way. And then what happens with time is they often start to grow in different directions. They go in different directions. They do not evolve with the same speed or in the direction of evolution and growth as the other one does.
Mhm.
So what happens is that people who come together like this, in time, sometimes they separate and go like that. And so somebody who is this wonderful yoga teacher you had may have been with whoever he was with, his significant other, at a time when they were spiritually, emotionally, psychologically, physically connected on a level that was copacetic and perfect. And then he went this way and she went that way or whatever. And people should not stay together when they are not together, you see? So essentially, it is not a violation or a contradiction to his spiritual journey or to what you've learned from him.
Mm.
It's not a violation of that or a contradiction to it at all. It's just recognizing that who I am now isn't what I was when we were together in the beginning, or either is the other person. So each of them must find their own new journey, you know? I don't think it's a contradiction at all. I've been married 3 times. Does that mean I'm a failure at marriage? Yes, it probably does, but not necessarily, not necessarily. As I evolved and as my wives evolved, we took separate roads, separate journeys. We ceased to fulfill each other. And that doesn't mean that they're bad or I'm bad or I made a mistake or they were no good. It doesn't mean anything like that at all. It means that in life, the energies that take you on your journey often change, internally and externally, you know? I think Jesus Christ probably had some significant flaws, significant issues. That does not mean he was not, putting aside that he's the Son of God, which I don't believe, but that does not mean he was not a wonderful, spiritual, loving person.
Mhm.
Even though my work is so productive and helps so many people, it doesn't mean that I'm a perfect person. It doesn't mean that I don't have my issues, my faults, my, maybe my feet are made of clay. You know, I mean, everybody has their stuff. And the sooner we are willing to embrace our flaws and our inadequacies, the more of a human being positively we can become. You know, I don't have any illusions about myself. I see water, I try to walk on water, I drown. You know what I'm saying? So I mean, we have to really be realistic about everything. I don't have any illusions about myself. You know?
How do you recognize a good teacher when you see one?
By the results. By the results. And I'm looking at one of them right now.
Thank you.
Okay?
Thank you, Eric.
Did I answer your question?
Yes.
Good.
Thank you.
Okay.